Kumlenen, a blood Gemara. We are up to Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, and we are sort of about 20 lines on the top of the page. Amar Mar. We're talking about how the Kohen Gadol, when he went in and so on and so forth. And the last thing we learned about was a discussion whether he put it directly, in the pile, and how he put the ashes on top of the coal outwards and bringing it in. Okay. Okay, says the Gemara. Okay, we talked about also that spice, that herb called Mala Osham, that you have to bring in, and if it's missing it, the whole thing is not considered a valid status. Amamar. Okay, so about 20 lines at the top. The third one line is Amamar. First one line is Titus. Amamar. We learned before. How do you know that you're supposed to put this particular herb called Mala Osham? How do you know you're supposed to put that in as well? It says in the pasuk it should cover the chisa. It says in the pasuk that it should cover the. It says in the pasuk they should put the Titus on the fire. The kisa anan haktitus as a kapitis. That anan haktitus should cover the kapitis. So we're saying it should cover, and that's this particular one called Mila Osham. Fredi Gemara kro. You need a pasuk to tell you another pasuk. You already said another pasuk. Kiba anan a raw ala kapayit. We heard before that the anan should be seen at top of the kapayit. That's what we know. You need mal osham. So you bring another pasuk to support a pasuk. Why would you do that? We're in Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, about 22 lines on the top. We're talking about the Gemara asks, how do you know you're supposed to bring mal osham, one of those spices? And we bring a pasuk. It says it has to cover. Has to cover the kapayis. The smoke has to cover the kapayis. We're asked, what do you need a second pasuk for? We already have the other pasuk where it says that kiba onan erola kapayis. Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef hachakama. Rav Yosef, this is what you're supposed to read. Ainli alei. All I know is the leaves of this spice. Mala osham. What about ikim mala osham? What are the roots of the mala osham? Benign. How do you know you can bring that in as well? Tamalayme v'chisa. The extra word, and it should cover. And so we're saying it also includes the roots. In other words, the root, what Rabbi Yosef thinks is inferior to the actual leaves of this particular spice, but the roots are also good. In the Brisa, just the opposite. The roots are much better. The time we learned nothing about when they use the roots of this particular spice, which no one knows what it is because Beisaf Tinus refused to share it, it would then go waft its way up like a stick, straight as a stick, until it reaches the ceiling. Once the smoke hits the ceiling, it spreads everywhere and it comes down the walls. The entire room gets filled with smoke. As it says in Pasuk, the base of meat will be full of smoke. So we see the roots actually generate all that smoke. So the roots are much better. I agree with my Rebbe, but exactly the opposite. My wash oil is at the roots. When it says keep it on, I know the roots. I know that the leaves of my lotion of that spice can also be used. And it should cover, and something else also covers it. That's the roots. Rav Sheshes says, why I need two psukim? Why I need the pasuk where it says kiba ananera? That tells you when my lotion is good. And why do you also need v'chisa? And it should cover the anan al-kabah. What I need that for? Elam, ainly elam. I would have thought that only in the Mishkan you have this requirement. Should have midbar. That's in the midbar. What about Shilai, Mishkan Shilai? What about Beis Elamim, the permanent base of Mikdash B'nai? How do you know they also have to have this particular spice? Tamalim. It says vechisa. So vechisa is not coming to include more spices. It's coming to include more places. Future base of Mikdash.
In the Brisa of Pitamak Toiles, it has one of the 11 is Mala Osham. So in Yom Kippur, according to this, on Yom Kippur, they put the roots with the rest of the year was only the leaves?
What do you call it? Mala Osham really is the name of the spice itself. Mala doesn't necessarily mean the leaf of the Osham.
Yeah.
So he's saying, and we're talking now about Yom Kippur, that or we're talking about the whole year, different version. But what we're saying here is you can use either one. Either one is good enough. Ainly, ask a better question. We just said a minute ago that you can only use Mila Osham. If you're missing it, you're Chayiv Misa. So how did when the Chacham decided to stop using Beis of Tinus? You remember they went to the people in Alexandria and they didn't know what Mila Osham was. So how were the Chacham even thinking they were Yaitza? And the only problem was that the smoke didn't work its way up properly. So how did they couldn't even have done it even once. So obviously it doesn't, it has to be something like Mila Osham. Okay, it doesn't have to be exactly my lashon, because it is what the chachams have a minute. And so therefore, the chiddush only is that the leaves which are not generating the smoke like the Mila Ocean is also good enough. Ainly Yom Kippurim. All I know is Yom Kippur. I know the rest of the year. It said, one has a question, sorry. It says, there's another passage which says that you should do the same thing in oil mode. And it says that whatever Yom Kippur, and you should do the same thing in the oil mode. Hashoichin itam. Wherever it is, in other words, we know from there that all Batim Mikdashas will have the same thing. So you're mostly right. We're not talking about the space, talking about time. We only know that Yom Kippur itself is good enough. How do you know the rest of the year the Ketayos bring every single day? How do you know also you could bring, the leaves? Rashi says no. Rashi says it says twice in the pasuk. One is to tell you lechatchila what you do, and the other one will tell you that if you don't do it at all, you're not even yaitzer. Remember, by kachim we say you have to repeat everything twice. Rava says chad le'oinish v'chad la'azhara. Rava says one of these psukim is to tell you the warning, right? Kiba'onon eira in the future tense. I want this to how it should be with the cloud. So that's the warning. That's the lav, or that's the telling you better have it. And then the other one is v'chisa non-titus as a kapitis. Lo yamus. That's the punishment. And what brings up Rashi that supported Rabbi Tanya. Rabbi says lo yamus. When it says the pasuk v'chisa, you should cover it. And lo yamus, you shouldn't die. That's the einish. That's the punishment. When it says in the other pasuk, kiba'onon eira, that's a hazara. That's telling you how you should do it. Yocho. Now, both of them are written in Pashas Acharei Mois, which starts off with the words Acharei Mois Shnei Bnei Adam, after the two children of Aaron died. So Yocho thought, first of all, I would have thought Yishnei Mamudim Koyim Bnei Adam. First, I would have thought that this was said initially, Acharei Mois Shnei Adam, that the punishment and the law were given to us after Aaron passed away. The children of Aaron passed away. I would have thought, well, if you're going to take the Pasha literally, then even the Avera of it was given to us after Nadav passed away. I will be seen with the cloud on the Kapoitis, and that already happened before Moshe Ibn Aaron. That already happened, that there's already an on there, and so on. So must be okay. So as Misa, they were warned before the story of the episode of Nadav Avihu. They're already warned that you have to have the malashim, but the einish, the punishment was only achamisa after Nadav Avihu passed away. My Talmud, how do you know? Amar of course, and pasuk kiba onan eira, future tense, but dayin lo nida, and it wasn't yet seen. What, they didn't see the cloud yet. So when this pasuk was said, I didn't see it yet. But after they passed, Nadav passed away, they already saw it. Because on that day it says that Aaron went out and he benched the people, and they all saw it. So obviously that pasuk kiba onan eira was said before it happened. So then why did they pass away? Bella, my time on is why they passed away. Is the problem they didn't bring the Mala Oshon? They would have been told already to bring it. So why did they pass away? Especially the punishment wasn't given until later. You know why they passed away? They passed in something before Moshe the Rebbe. There are numerous reasons given as to why Nadav Avihu passed away, including that they didn't have any children, they didn't want any children, or Rashi the Chumash drank wine, and so on. And then the Rebbe's question in the pasuk clearly it says why. What if an age zara? What are all these other reasons adding, or where is that coming from? But I said, the Bnei Adam didn't pass away only because they paskin in front of Moshe. What psak did they paskin? My daughters, what did they paskin? So it says in the pasuk, what were they dashing? It says in the pasuk, even nosnu Bnei Adam hakoyim. What did they do? They placed the Bnei Avihu a fire ala mizbeach. They placed the fire on the mizbeach. They placed the fire on the mizbeach. That's what they did. Afapi, why did they place the fire in the Mizbeach? Even though Eish Yered Shemaim, we learned before one of the miracles was there was a constant fire coming from Shemaim to them. But mitzvah lahavim in the head. They paskin is a mitzvah also to bring our own fire, which we learned before. But they paskin that, and even though they were right, you're not going to paskin in front of your Rebbe. They should have asked the Rebbe instead of just doing it without asking, and that's why they got punished for paskin for the Rebbe. Now, very interesting. The Rishonim here ask, in the name of Rabbeinu Elchanan, who asked his father the Ri, he doesn't understand. This idea of Eish Yered Shemayim, Mitzel Havim in Hedget, is talking about the outside Mizbeach. They were in the inside Mizbeach. They were bringing Ketayis in the Lefnai Lefnim. So what does it have to do with Eish Yeredis Hashemayim, Mitzvah Havin Hedyet? So some of the Shainim will learn, which is puzzling, and you have to see how it fit in the Chumash, that the story of Leviyu never happened in Kodesh Gedashim. They never were Lifnei Hashem here. Does not mean Kodesh Gedashim. It was actually in the outside Mizbeach, and that's where this fire comes in. It was all on the outside Mizbeach, and according to some, it's talking about the Kodesh of Nachshon. The Nachshon of that day was bringing Kodesh, and they did it, and they added fire on the outside Mizbeach because Mitzvah L'Havim Min HaHedyet. Now, if you read the Chumash, it sounds clearly that they went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and then Eish Zorin and so on, but they learned hold of him shot, and then the Rishonim try to work out exactly how it fits in. So it's pretty interesting, including Tracy Shonim over here, but the Ritva and others. Says the Gemara further. Remember, we looked at when he walks out, he walks backwards. He never turns around. How do you know that? It says the pasuk. It says the pasuk that Shlomo came la bomba. He went to the bomba asher begivon. That it was in a place called Givon, Yerushalayim. What do you mean Yerushalayim? He went from Yerushalayim to go to Givon. So what do you mean he went to Givon that was in Yerushalayim? What in the world does Givon have to do in Yerushalayim? Which said me Yerushalayim. So, or if he's coming back home, it just said min habama. That wasn't Givon. He went to Yerushalayim. The way he went, the direction he went from Givon towards Yerushalayim, the same direction he went from Yerushalayim to Givon. What do you mean? When he traveled from Yerushalayim to Givon, he was facing Givon towards the Bama. So that's the way he was going, and that's the way he was leaving. He never turned around. He was facing the Bama. To be respectful the way he came in, that's how he stepped backwards. When the Kohanim were doing the Avodah, when they finished, they would walk backwards, step backwards outside of the base of Mikdash. The Leviim were standing on the platform doing their thing. They were singing all that. They used to step back. When they left, they used to step backwards. And we're learning more time this day that the Yidden also had a group representing everybody who every single day would stand by the Karban Tzibur. They also, when they finished, they stepped backwards. They didn't turn around, which is not exactly walking backwards. They walked sort of sideways. They walked back sideways because the other end, and their face was turned, to where they were walking from. This way, they don't bump into anything either. If you're leaving your Rebbe, don't just turn around and give him your back, which is chutzpahdik. He walks sort of sideways, and you look at him as you're walking out. Whenever he would leave Rabbi Yochanan, it depends. Rabbi Yochanan wanted to walk. Rabbi Elazar would bow down. He would stand in one place, bow down, and he would stand the whole time until he can no longer see Rabbi Yochanan from him. The Kad Rabbi Elazar was good. Rabbi Elazar wanted to walk out. He walked backwards. He can no longer see Rabbi Yochanan, and then he would turn around and walk the way he was. So you see the tremendous derech Rabbi Elazar had Rabbi Yochanan. We had that story in Gemara Shkolin there. We'll have it later in Shah and Bava as well. But Rabbi Yochanan was very upset that Rabbi Elazar was saying over halachas, and he didn't say the name of Rabbi Yochanan. And one of his talmidim said to him, "Everyone knows that Rabbi Elazar is so devoted to you. Whatever he says is yours." As you see from the story right here, how he used to walk out. Rava. Kad having miftim mined Rabbi Yosef Rava, whenever he would leave Rabbi Yosef, have a ozalachayr, he also went backwards. Add until the menachven kare, until his feet would sort of bump into each other, they would rub against each other. Misvasen askupta the Rabbi Yosef dama, and he used to wash the doorpost of Rabbi Yosef with his blood. In other words, he walked backwards and he used to bang against things because he couldn't see where he was going, but he out of respect to Rabbi Yosef. Maybe that explains why it's Abaye who's always asking Rabbi Yosef questions. They seldom find Rabbi asking Rabbi Yosef questions. Amru le Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef was blind. He didn't see all this. They told Rabbi Yosef, "Hachi Avara, this is what Rabbi should do." Omar, he said, "Yehei Rabba." He turned to Rabba and gave him a bracha. It should be Hashem's wish. The Toroim Reishach, he should lift your head, or lift you Akula Karcha over the entire city. You'll become the Rabba of the city, which is what happened. Alexander, somebody davened Shmoneset Tzorich Sheyifsa Tzorich Sheyafsiya Sholish Psilachayv. Now we're talking about you have to walk backwards when you finish. When you finish Shmoneset, you're talking to the Eibishter. You also have to step backwards. So we step back 3 steps, and the Achikach only afterwards eating Shalom, you give Shalom. Which some people actually say there's a meaning to say Shalom Aleichem to the people on your right, Shalom Aleichem on the left. We just say Oisa Shalom Imreima when we're talking to the Eibishter. Others say that you're talking to the people around you and you're saying, as if you just came back to the world and you're saying shalom to everybody around you. And you go 3 steps. The middle step is the one you're supposed to take the largest. The first and the last are the first is small, ekiv tzadagoidel. The first step is supposed to be the left. You always start with your left foot, and your left foot goes to the back of your right. And then, the Alter Rebbe actually paskins that if you're a lefty, you're supposed to start with your right foot. And then the last step is you equal out your feet. And then you give shalom. Once you go back 3 steps, you should remain there. You should stay there. And there's a big machlek, and this is very interesting, of din Shulchan Aruch, and yet most people don't do it. And that is, Shulchan Aruch clearly says that when you go back 3 steps, you have to stand and wait there either until Kedusha, the Chazan says Kedusha, or others are showing other Paskan Shulchan Aruch, or at least when the Chazan starts Chazal Zashatz. And even by Ma'ariv, the time it would have taken for the Chazan to start Chazal Zashatz, or say Kaddish. The Rebbe used to wait by Kaddish till Tiskabel Tzleisim before he went back. And what do you call it? And yet most people do not. When they finish the 3 steps, and said even when you down b'yechidus, you should wait a little bit, as long as it takes to walk 4 amos. And yet most of us don't. We go back 3 steps, but we do say oisa shalom and which takes the time that it would take to walk 4 amos, and then most of us just walk back. And the question is why we do that, because it doesn't even allow for such an opinion. There are a number of mefarshim that say that Mordechai here, in fact, some of the Goinim, that a Mordechai here is not an Amora. It doesn't belong to the Gemara. He's one of the Goinim, and by mistake or for whatever reason, they put him into the Gemara. And therefore, this whole piece of Kivun Shepasal Achaylev, that's where you should stand. There's no such Gemara and no such halacha. And that's probably the basis for why many of us don't wait when we get to the back there. Nowhere does the Gemara say you have to go back to your original place. It says you go back 3 steps and you have to stand there, and that's it. Let's say Mashal Talmud into Merabe. It's a Mashal Talmud leaves the Rebbe im Chayzer la Alta dem lekelev. If you go right back, you're like a dog sheshav al keyah, who's running back to eat his vomit, or he's running back he wants to daven again or something. In other words, it's not appropriate. Tanya, we learned to go back 3 steps. The achakach naflo didn't shalom give shalom. If he didn't do that, ro loy shaloi his palm. And you go back 3 steps, and if you didn't go back the 3 steps, it's better you didn't daven the roll. You didn't daven the roll. So here, the part that it says that if you don't, it's better you didn't daven is only regarding going back 3 steps and saying shalom, not about waiting there. They said shalom. You mean you give shalom to your right, then to your left. It says that the Eibishter gave the fire from his right side. So you see the right is more choshev, so you should turn to your right. Then says another pasuk says Yipol mitzitcha elef, on your left side should fall 1,000, 10,000 on your right. So you see the right is more choshev. What do you need the second pasuk for? Because you might say most people are righty, they give it the right hand. Doesn't prove that the right is more choshev. Toshma Yipol mitzitcha, on your left side only 1,000 mazikim will die. But on the right side 10,000. So see, the right side is more chashuv. So right now, the way we understand the Gemara is you're supposed to turn to the right by Shalom, and then to the left, and then to the middle. However, Rav Chazal Abaye, Rav wants to Abaye, the Yoyiv Shalma Liyimina Bereisha. First he gave right, with his head. He turned to the right. Amalei misavridly, you mean didach? You think right means you're right? L'smoil didach, and you're left. Ka amina davi yimina shalakadosh baruch hu. That's not what we say. We mean the Eibush is right, because you're facing the Eibush. That's why by Oisha Shalom, by Shemon Esrei, we first go to the left, because it's the Eibush is right, and then to the right, and then to the middle. And this is in contrast to Kaddish, where over there Oisha Shalom is we're saying Oisha Shalom to the right, and so on to the left, because we're representing the people. So therefore, we're looking at the people's right, the people's left. Here by Shemon Esrei is a personal conversation with the Eibush, so we're looking at the Eibush's right and left. We saw by Oisha Shalom they bowed down a little bit the head, and then they walked back the 3 steps while the head was bowed down in that same direction. It's interesting that if you were thinking, where am I going to find the dinim of Shemon Esrei stepping back, how to do it, you would definitely think it's in the brachas. You would never imagine in your wildest imagination that's found right in the middle of Masechta Yoma. And this is how Shas works. That's why you have to learn through the whole Shas to get a good overview of everything. But interesting, in this Gemara here, nowhere does it say that you have to go back to your original place. You go back 3 steps and you wait there, and then you can sit down, do whatever you want. there's one of the Rishonim, or the Goyim, I can't remember who it was, who came along and said that you have to actually go back to your original place. And because of that, we have the din that nobody should walk right in front of you when you're standing, when you're waiting, when you go back 3 steps and you're about to go back to your place, no one should walk right in front of you, because you have to still, going back to your original place is part of the avodah. That doesn't come from the Gemara. In fact, it doesn't even come from the Rishonim here on Al-Asar. It's from, I can't remember who it was, who came out and said that you have to, I think Rebbe Noach, I can't remember, I said you have to go back to your original place, which is what we all do anyway, based on that. But that's why it's not such a big deal if somebody walks in front of you, because it was only his opinion that you have to go back. And most of the Gemara don't say it, most of them don't even mention it. Anyway, the Kohen Gadol there mispaled Filik Tzara. And then you daven, the Chazor, the Shatz, the Chazan doesn't have to go back 3 steps because he relies on Kaddish, the Shalom of Kaddish. Mispaled Filik Tzara, and then he davens a very short daven, he basically is outside. My matzah, what exactly does the Kohen Gadol daven? Let it be you wish Hashem. That this year should be Geshuma, it should rain. Ushchuna, it should be hot. You see, who wants a hot year? It's miserable. If it's hot, then you need much more rain. It's not adequate what you have in a normal year. So therefore, please let it rain more. We don't want to lose the leaders of the house of Yehuda. Some say it's referring to the Reish Galusa, others say it's talking about Mashiach. And in the occasion, and we actually say this in davening on Yom Kippur, we don't want that the Eden should have to have parnasa from other Eden. Everyone should be able to stand on their own 2 feet. And that we want it to rain. If people who are traveling home, they don't want it to rain. They say, hey, don't make it rain until we come home. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. I'm not sure exactly why this section of Loy Techanis is all the way at the end. It should have been said right after he says, take Shuma. I want it to rain. And right there, he should have said, but Loy Techanecha. Don't know why he threw it in at the end. And the Gemara wants to say that it works for most Ovid Rachim, but not for this particular one. He used to travel. Shada Mitrale started to rain. Everybody's happy because it's raining. They'll have a good, abundant crop. But I am in pain because I want to go home and it's raining. And he couldn't afford a coat. The Gemara says, we'll have more tinus, that the whole world is nizan b'shvil chanina b'ni. The whole world is getting panasa in the schus of chanina. And the chanina b'ni daila b'kav charuban. And he has nothing for himself. He is so destitute and so poor. And yet the whole world is rich in his schus. So he's saying that I'm inside. I can't even afford anything. Pasuk made the rain stopped immediately. He also came home. Everyone's in pain. The chanina benachas, and I'm happy because I don't need rain. What do I need rain for? I can't afford a farm. Also mitra, or I don't need a farm. Also mitra started to rain. The Kohen Gadol, the Gabe of Chanina ben Daisa. The Kohen Gadol can daven for Tzeidel tomorrow, represent Klal Yisrael, but he has no chance if Chanina ben Daisa is on the opposite side, asking exactly the opposite. So we learned Maise big Kohen Gadol. The story of Kohen Gadol. Echad Shehedi B'Shalasa. He davened for a long time, and the Nimno Echav Kohen. They didn't want to name him because the story is not so. Even though he did the right, he tried to do the right thing, but it's not flattering. They got worried. They got worried because we say that the Kohen Gadol, if he's not worthy of being Kohen Gadol, might die in the Kodesh Kedoshim. They should tie a rope around him, and they used to pull him out because unfortunately we learned there were almost 300 Kohenim Gedolim that were corrupt, and they had to pull them out of the Kodesh Kedoshim. So when he didn't come out straight away, they got very worried. So it seems that at his time, this is some say Shimon Tzadik. At his time, he wasn't. They didn't have a rope, so they were going to go into Kodesh Kedoshim. I'm not sure exactly how they were going to go. Maybe blindfold themselves, and then they would pull them out. They started to walk into the Heichel. He's walking out. We were on shpilkes. We're on tenderhooks. What were you doing there? What bothered you that I davened a little bit longer for you? Which is hard to understand. But Shimon HaTzadik, the Beis Hamikdash was just built. What's he davening that the Beis Hamikdash should be destroyed 400 years later? So maybe it's not Shimon HaTzadik. I said to him, as worthy a cause as it is, don't do this again. We learned he wasn't ma'adik shouldn't frighten the Eden. Some people want to bring a raya from me that was Shimon Tzaddik, and they want to bring a raya that they already had Mishnayos, because it's telling you this is our Mishnah we just learned. How would they have Mishnayos in time of Shimon Tzaddik? Because some people say the Mishnayos is written and they just kept on piling it up. But the Rambam actually said that even Rebbe didn't write the Mishnayos. He just compiled it. It was written many years later by Rashi. He just compiled it. So the pshat is, and l'chayda to say Shimon Tzaddik is very difficult, because why would he be davening so the Mishnah should be destroyed already at that early stage?
Because didn't we know that Yosef and Binyamin cried on each other's shoulders because they knew already that there's going to be destroyed?
But it doesn't make sense that the first Kohen Gadol should daven 400 years later.
Well, maybe he doesn't have the nevuah like Yosef and Binyamin to know exactly when. He knows it's going to happen.
Well, if he didn't know either, because if he knew it doesn't make sense to daven now for 400 years. It just doesn't happen. You don't daven for events 400 years hence. And the problem also is the Mishnah. It sounds like it was a much later Kohen Gadol, whoever it was, and at that time the Mishnayos already were floating about. Okay, it wasn't the Rebbe's times because there was no Beis Hamikdash then, but it was a lot closer, and they already had Hill and Sham and all that things were being said at least by heart.
When he said the Beis Hachitzon is really the Heichel, isn't
it? Yeah, on his way out, as it's going out. But even so, they would have a rope around them, so they didn't have to go in. But yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. So maybe they, as soon as he walked out of Kodesh Kodashim, he took the rope off him, and maybe that's what it was. So therefore, there was no rope over here because he took it off as soon as he walked out of the Kodesh Kodashim. Maybe. But then if they took the rope off, they would have known right away that he's all right. Okay, not exactly sure. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. It says the Gemara further. Mishnah. Sorry, Shalin shouldn't intimidate or frighten the Eden, thinking that the Kohen Gadol didn't make it. Says the Mishnah Vayter, Mishnah Aron. The second base of Mikdash was no longer an Aron. Even Hoyse Sham, there was a stone inside the Gadolashim. The Vim Hadashonim. It must be shining from the times of the first Nevi'im. We'll learn later what exactly the stone is, and it was anyway. And this stone was called Shtia Haisanikras. It was called Eveshasiya. Gavoya Mina Audit. It was raised from the ground. Shalosh as boys, 3 fingers. Voleo Hayanoisain. And on top of this, that's where the Kohen Gadol would place the Machte and the Titus. Not less Hadam, even though there's no Aron, that's where he did it. Not less Hadam, he would now remember we learned all the way in the beginning that he shechted the parah and then he did the Titus, and while he was doing the Titus, there was a kind of standing there and constantly stirring the blood so it shouldn't congeal. He then would turn around to the Kohen who had the blood and he would take it from him, by the one who was stirring it the whole time. And he would take a nichnas lamakim shenichnas. He went back to the same place where he just was before the Kodesh Kodashim. He go back to the same place where he stood. And remember, there was 2 animals. There was the parah and there was the chatas, the goat. So v'hizim in men. First he did the parah. He took the bull, and he sprayed achas lemayla v'shem lemata. He sprayed in the direction of the Aron. 1 was higher and 7 below. And v'lohaya miskaven lahazes lemayla lemata. He didn't like have any particular aim. 1 above and then 7 below. Ela kematzlif. Remember that it didn't land. He sprayed it upwards and it landed on the ground in front of the kapara. So he had his finger and he sprayed it higher and then he just went lower. Kematzlif just went 1 below the next. The kachla. Wait, this is how he counted. Achas v'achas. First he counted achas. Yeah, and what's achas? Achas is that 1 spray lemaila. And then when he did the next one, which is now starting the 7 below, he said achas v'achas, and then he said achas v'shtayim. But the achas v'shtayim means achas refers to that 1 that was on top, and then the shtayim is the second. He's now doing the second one on the bottom. Then he said achas v'shal. This is my 3rd one. But he always kept on going back to the achas, the one that he did on top. Okay, so that's how you see. Always referred back to that one. We'll talk about it later. Why? Yotzi, they went out. Went out. He placed that bowl under the stand like a pedestal, a golden stand or base in the Heichel. Then they brought him now the goat to Chatas. Shachtri, he shechted, the kibbutz mitzvah dame, he accepted the utensil of blood. Nicholas Lamokli, he went back to the Kodesh Kodashim we stood before. Did the exact same procedure, one above, some below. The Kachlayimay, the same thing. Achas, the Shtayim B'chulu. Yotzi, they went out, Viniche al Kain Hazov Hashem Echel. They took that utensil and put it on the second. There was two different golden bases there, or pedestals to hold these things up. Abuda disagreed. He says only one. There's only one cane, so it only had room for one bowl. So what did they do? So according to Rabbi Yehuda, Notul Dam Hapar. So when he came back with the bowl for the blood of the goat, before he put it down, he would pick up the blood of the bull. So now the base was empty, and then he would put down the thing. This is only according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Hanakama, that's not what he did at all. First he put it down, and then he picked up, because there were two different bases. But Yehuda is only one. He had no choice. First he had to remove what was already standing there, and then put this one down. The Hiza Mimena, now they went and sprayed on the Paraychis. Shekeneged Orim B'chutz. Now he sprayed on the Paraychis, which is, dividing between the Kodesh Kodashim and Kodesh. He sprayed there. Achas Lamai, the same procedure. Shavlamata, the same thing as before. The Kachlayimay, so they went through the whole thing. Then Notul Dama say it. V'nei Dama Par. Then again, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he had to first lift the bowl of the blood of the goat before he put down the blood of the bull, because only one base. We need Dama Par. V'hizim and Menal did the same thing. She connected order b'chutz achas l'mayla shavlamata. And then what he did was he had now two bowls with residual blood from the par and from the seir. Ile Dama Par, the third Dama seir. He mixed together the blood of the par with the blood of the seir. The nos and the samole berekun. And now, so you mix them together by putting them in one pot, and then from that one pot, you put it back into the other pot that was now empty, and you put it in. By doing this, you're sort of mixing it well. Says the Gemara, Mishnah is like Tony. The Mishnah doesn't say when the Aron was hidden, it says when the Aron was taken. Now remember, Gemara Scholar we learned, and we already mentioned it before, there's a machlekes, what happened to the Aron? Was it hidden somewhere in the base of English, or was it actually taken to Bavel? So the Gemara, Mishnah, when you tell Tanan, we learned that our Mishnah clearly before holds that our Aron went to Bavel. The Tanya we learned, no, it didn't end up in the base of English, it was taken to Bavel. Rabbi Eliezer says Aron go to Bavel. He believed Aron would take the Bavel. Remember, it says the following year, Sholach Hamel Muchanetzer, and Muchanetzer said for him, he brought him to Bavel in clay chemdas base Hashem with all the wonderful utensils from the house of Hashem, and that includes the Aron. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, according to this version of Shimon Yochai, says Aron go to Bavel. He also agrees the Aron was taken to Bavel. It says in the pasuk that everything will be taken to the base of English. Nothing will be left behind. Amar Hashem. And what's the? And we're saying the Dover Amar Hashem, which is the thing that Hashem said. Elo says the Ibris. That's says the Ibris, and that was also taken. He says the Adam was actually stored in the base of Mikdash. We learned before the King Yayash that he hid it. It says he told him a few days ago. He said it says that they were able to see the poles poking through the kodesh. They were able to see the shape through the paraychis. They didn't actually see it. It was visible. The Yiyu Sham, and it should be there ad hayim hazeh, and that should be there forevermore. Which tells us the Aron is always in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, where exactly in the Beis Hamikdash the Aron was hidden? That itself is a machlekes, whether it's in the Kodesh Kodashim but subterranean, or was in Lishchas Ha'etzim, somewhere totally different. Remember, in Gemara Shkolim there we'll have a soon in Gemara as well. That story with the kohen, he saw something wrong with the floor, that one of the tiles there was lifted, and then he died because he. Ula said that even Shimon Yochai holds that it was buried in the base of Mikdash. What's the story? Shimon Yochai went to Rome. We had a few times he went to Rome. The famous story there in Mila with all that missing the miracles he made. When he came to Rome, the Master Mechedesh asked, "Tell me, Rabbi Lezer told us twice. He has two different sources that he went to Bavel. The first one is the pasuk he said before that Rabbi Lezer said. It says, Truvas Hashana. He sent for all the clay chemdas beis Hashem. So he learned from there that the Aron is included in Bavel. And then what's the second pasuk that he said? See what it says in pasuk. They were taken out of Yerushalayim. Kol hadora, all of its splendor. My kol hadora. What do you mean by all of its splendor? Hadora, we call my kol hadora chadra. I wanted that which was in the most hidden room, which is obviously is the Aron, is the luchas. Ata, my ata. But what are you? What do you hold? He asked Hashem Yochai personally. I say, he said, I believe the Aron is actually somewhere in the base of Mikdash. So we see from here that Ula's version of Shem Yochai that was actually buried in the base of Mikdash. And the whole idea is Ad Hayom Hazeh. Ula, my mashma. How do you see from this pasuk that the Aron is still in Shalim? The Chesiv it says. So he answered back. It says, he sham ad hayom hazeh. It was there until this very day. So Rabbi says, so what do you tell me that every time it says till this very day means even today? Let me ask a question. Ad hayom hazeh means la'olam, forever? Maybe it means for a long time. Who says forever? I'll prove it to you. It says, the Yevusi, the people of the nation of Yevusi, lived in Shalayim. The people of Binyamin never chased them out. And the Yevusi and the Binyamin are coexisting ad hayom hazeh till this very day. So you're going to believe now it could be the goyim there still called Yevusi, but you're going to believe the Eden were always there. We know for a fact that there was times that the Eden did not live in Yerushalayim. The time we learned, there was a time, we always say that this never happened, the Eden were not in Yerushalayim. There was a time of 52 years that there was not one Yid living in Yerushalayim. So how can you say Elohim? It says in the Pasuk, how do you know that? It says in the Pasuk, on the mountains I will raise my voice, I'll cry, and I was whimpering on the Midbar, on the savannah of Midbar, Kina. You're crying. Why? It was there. There's nobody crossing it. Nobody was passing it. We didn't hear the sound even of cattle. That there's nothing there. All the animals, they all left.
I think it's the Haftarah for Tisha B'Av.
Sorry?
I think it's the Haftarah from the Haftarah for Tisha B'Av.
Okay. Okay. So he says here, Behema is begematria 52, and the word behema is 52. So how many years? Ad behema nodar halacha. That the behemoths haven't gone there means 52 years. There was nobody in Shalim, and the pasuk says ad hayom hazeh. So obviously ad hayom hazeh doesn't mean forever. So how do you know the Aron is there forever? And furthermore, Rabbi Yosi says there was 7 years, a period when there was these hailstorms of sulfur and all that, and nobody can live there. My time with Rabbi Yosi, how does Rabbi Yosi know to say that it was raining Gofris and Melech like by his dome? Asya, we learn out bris. We learn out from the word bris. It says twice. It says over here that strengthened the bris for everybody for a period of 7. And over there it says, this happened because you've forsaken the covenant of the Eibishter Elokei Avoisam. So we see that bris that there was a punishment of Gofri Melech for 7 years. So my question is, he asked quickly, how can you tell me the Aron was there because it's Ad Olam? Ad Olam doesn't mean forever. Amala, you're right. It says over there, Sham Ad Olam. There, it's much more specific, which means that it's still there. Hasam like Siv Sham. Over there by Yerushalayim, it doesn't say Sham. By Yevusi, it's Kozin and Binyamin. It just says Ad Hayom Hazeh. It doesn't say Sham there, Ad Hayom Hazeh. And therefore, it's different. And the Gemara let's go formalize and finish the sugya. So when you tell me the word Sham, that's the giveaway. That because it's so specific, that means La'olam forever. Let me ask a question. It makes us a question. It says, from there, the Bnei Shimon, the people of the tribe of Shimon went to Hasayir to kill the rest of Amalek, Anoshim, men, Chamesh Meis, 500 people, and also joined them with Platya, and the Arya, or the fire, Oziel, Bnei Yishi, Bereshim will leave them. And by Yaku, and they beat up, or they killed, She'edis, Haplate to the rest of the refugees, Amalek, all those refugees from Amalek. By Yeshu Sham, Ad Hayom Hazeh, says the Sham, they were there until this very day. The people of Shimon lived there until this very day. Okay, so according to you, it means even today. And what's the problem with that? But we know already quite all this. We know that Sanchedah, the king of Asher, came. He mixed everybody around. Shenem, it says, "Va'asid gevulas amim." I removed the boundaries of all the nations. But to say him, I stole all their wealth and their riches. So therefore, we see clearly from here, it says Sham Adiyim as it proves nothing. It says Gemara to Yufta. Good question. I'm not sure exactly how Shimon Yochai proved from that pasuk Adiyim as that the Aron is still there, but that's what he holds. And then Gemara tomorrow will continue discussing where the Aron is buried. Everyone have a good day.
Mapu.